Tonight, the war in the Middle East widens, with more countries drawn into the conflict as Iran lashes out at US and Israeli strikes. Yuma, good evening. I'm Adrienne Francis, coming to you from Ngunnawal country, and we also acknowledge others with connections to the lands of the ACT. This is ABC News. Also tonight, tens of thousands of Australian travellers stranded as the Middle East conflict brings airports to a standstill. A warning: petrol prices could rise sharply as the conflict disrupts a crucial oil and gas shipping route. A fresh appeal for information about a newborn left outside a South Canberra fire station 3 months ago. And marking 125 years of the Navy, the Australian War Memorial updates a much-loved display. The widening war in the Middle East has spilled into more countries as the US and Israel intensify their assault on Iran. After the stunning confirmation of the Supreme Leader's death, the US claims to have killed nearly 50 other Iranian leaders. President Donald Trump says the fighting in the Gulf could last for weeks and has vowed revenge after the first confirmed American deaths in the war. The impact of the conflict is rippling around the world. Oil prices have jumped and travellers remain stranded with ongoing travel chaos at airports. We'll get the latest from the US shortly, but our coverage begins in the Middle East with our correspondent Matthew Doran.
Exchanging fire in a widening war. Missiles light up the night sky as Israel and the US intensify their assault on Iran.
Our forces are now striking in the heart of Tehran with increasing intensity, which will grow even stronger in the coming days.
Newly released video from the Israeli military shows the moment the headquarters of Iran's powerful Revolutionary Guard was destroyed, another blow to the regime following the death of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. As the US presses its assault, video capturing the moment a fighter jet spirals to the ground over Kuwait. After a second night of strikes, the US and Israel say they hit more than 2,000 targets. A hospital was hit, as well as the offices of the Iranian state broadcaster.
I once again urge the Revolutionary Guard, the Iranian military, police, to lay down your arms and receive full immunity or face certain death.
Israel has also started attacking Hezbollah in Lebanon after the militant group entered the fray, firing rockets and drones across the border. Residents fleeing into the streets, strewn with rubble and debris. As Iran and its proxies come under fire, the regime is lashing out in retaliation, hitting countries across the region. With luxury hotels and apartments coming under fire in Dubai.
No joking, guys, we have just been hit by a drone.
Travellers are stuck in other cities due to airspace closures. At least 9 were killed in an Iranian strike in the Israeli city of Beit Shemesh, and in occupied East Jerusalem a missile hit a highway. Drone vision has revealed the extensive damage caused to a residential area in Tel Aviv on Saturday night, where one woman was killed. Shay Sagi wasn't at home at the time of the attack, seeing the destruction wrought by the shockwave, which destroyed the neighbouring building.
I'm shocked. I didn't imagine even how much damage. It's our house. We moved here 2 months ago after a long time of searching for a perfect apartment.
We are also bringing into this campaign the United States. This combination of forces enables us to do what I have long hoped to do for 40 years, to strike the terror regime decisively.
The Australian government supports that objective despite protests from the United Nations, which says the joint US and Israeli action has violated international law.
While Australia is not directly involved in current military strikes, we've been clear of our utter rejection of the brutal Iranian regime. We are concerned about regional escalation and the protection of civilians.
Ultimately, the legality of these measures is a matter for both the United States and Israel to go through.
Donald Trump says the newly appointed Iranian leadership has already made contact, claiming they want to talk. But just hours later, that insistence was rejected by a senior regime official, flatly stating we will not negotiate with the United States. A deepening conflict with no end in sight.
Let's bring in our correspondent Matthew Doran now. Matt, you're near a synagogue that's been hit by Iranian fire outside Jerusalem. What's the situation on the ground there?
Adrienne, good evening. You can see just how much devastation is at this site. This was a bomb shelter underneath the synagogue in a residential area here in Beit Shemesh, and it shows that even though the Israeli public is being told to seek shelter as those Iranian missiles are coming in, if it is a direct hit, there is going to be a lot of damage, and the risk of people being killed is incredibly high. 9 people dying here, more than 40 injured in that process. We also know that at sites like this, as they are happening across the country, we are seeing leading politicians making their presence known. At the moment, Naftali Bennett, a prime ministerial aspirant, is speaking to the local press down there after inspecting the damage. What will be important to watch from here is not only the future Iranian strikes, but also whether or not any Iranian proxy groups start to join in on this conflict more than they have already. They include Hezbollah in Lebanon, who have also already started firing missiles at Israel, being met with a very forceful response there. Also, the Houthis have promised to join in as well. Given that Iran is also striking Gulf countries, we will need to see what further damage is wrought across those locations and whether or not it prompts those Gulf states and their Arab neighbours to take a much firmer stance, going beyond comments of condemnation and taking action against Iran.
Middle East correspondent Matthew Doran, thank you. The US president has announced the first American casualties from the conflict. 3 US service members have been killed in Iran's counter-offensive, and Donald Trump says there will likely be more.
The US war machine striking Iran's ballistic missile facilities.
We have hit hundreds of targets in Iran, including Revolutionary Guard facilities, Iranian air defense systems.
But Tehran is striking back, killing 3 US troops.
But America will avenge their deaths and deliver the most punishing blow to the terrorists who have waged war against basically civilization.
They're the first American deaths in a major offensive that President Trump says could lead to more losses.
He owes it to not only the families of those 3 deceased service members, he needs to make the case when you start a war of choice, why it was so critical.
Britain, France and Germany say they're ready to help stop Iran's attacks. Prime Minister Keir Starmer allowing the US to use British bases for defensive strikes.
We have taken the decision to accept this request to prevent Iran firing missiles across the region, killing innocent civilians.
The killing of the Supreme Leader has further stoked anti-US sentiment, chants of death to America in Iran. And in neighbouring Pakistan, regime supporters attempted to storm the US consulate. At least 22 people were killed in clashes with security forces in Karachi and subsequent conflicts in the country's north. Even some of Trump's own supporters are criticising his so-called Operation Epic Fury.
I don't think this was in America's interest. It's going to uncork a significant can of worms and chaos and destruction.
The United States is far from unified on this issue. One poll showed only 1 in 4 Americans supported strikes against Iran. For Donald Trump, who once promised his America would stop toppling foreign regimes, his decision to strike could be one of the biggest political risks of his presidency.
President Trump!
He does have the support of much of the Iranian diaspora.
USA is the hero of the history!
Hoping for an end to Iran's authoritarian regime. Cayman Gok, ABC News, Washington.
With the Iranian regime fighting for its very survival, the risk of a much larger conflict is only rising. With his analysis, here's ABC correspondent Ben Knight.
The Iranian regime is facing the biggest threat to its existence since it took power in the 1979 Islamic Revolution. And after decades of mostly Cold War with the US and hot conflicts with Israel, Iran is now facing their combined and overwhelming military force. Iran can't possibly win, but the regime's fighting for survival, and that's how it's responding. With far more aggressive tactics. Whether by design or not, those tactics have the potential to put pressure on Donald Trump to wind up this new and unpopular war. This time, Iran is hitting US military bases and civilian targets in neighbouring countries. It's closing down oil shipping in the Strait of Hormuz, and it's even drawn in the UK, France and Germany. The world, and especially American allies, are feeling the impact of a war they knew nothing about and didn't want, while Americans, who were already unhappy about it, are now seeing US soldiers once again die in a foreign war. The US and Israel are relying on the Iranian people to overthrow their government, but right now there's no sign of that happening. Victory for the Iranian regime might simply mean clinging to power until the shooting stops.
Ben Knight reporting. Foreign Minister Penny Wong has ruled out immediate government-run repatriation flights, saying the fastest way home for Australians is on commercial airlines. Thousands remain stranded across the Middle East as aviation experts warn that even after fighting stops, it could be weeks before flights resume.
Airports across the Middle East still in chaos following thousands of flight cancellations. More than 100,000 Australians remain stranded in the region. Brisbane woman Trina Hockley is one of them.
The luggage, I haven't seen it, don't know where it is, don't know how to get it. I've just got a small backpack and I've got heart medication that will run out in a few days' time.
Hours after the United States and Israel struck Iran, several Middle Eastern countries, including the United Arab Emirates, closed their skies, blocking key air corridors. Back home, travellers are furious.
I've just been told it's going to cost me at least $2,000 to get home because I've got to go via the States. So I've got to buy a new ticket and then hope that Qatar will refund me.
When we got through to this side, there was nobody here. No representative from the airline, which is Qatar. And basically we've been in the airport ever since.
Some countries have signalled plans to repatriate citizens, but the Australian government has not yet committed to that.
We have about 115,000 Australians in the region, so that is a lot of people. The best way to get them home would be for commercial flights to return, because that is at scale.
But aviation experts say it could be weeks before flights to or from the region resume as airlines assess flight path safety.
They may be working with local police and military to secure additional protection and support for a limited number of flights at certain times.
Australians in the war zone are being asked to register their details with DFAT's new crisis portal, and travellers are being asked to reconsider future travel to the area.
Moving forward, if you haven't started your travel yet and you want to reconsider your travel and you have a travel insurance policy, you may be covered under a cancel at any reason clause.
For those still stranded, the more pressing concern is when and how they'll get home. Christy Sexton-McGrath, ABC News.
Australians are being warned the war could lead to petrol prices surging by as much as 30 cents a litre. And if the conflict drags on, experts say it's likely to drive up inflation and push interest rates even higher.
An oil tanker burns in the Strait of Hormuz as Iran lashes out. Roughly 20% of the world's oil flows through here each year, and why any closure could mean more pain at the petrol pump.
So definitely on my mind, because I drive a lot, like to and from uni, you know, everywhere.
It's going to completely throw a spanner in the mix. Honestly, inflation, it's getting crazy out here.
It's quite opportunistic that Australian companies will put them up.
The Strait of Hormuz is a crucial sea corridor off Iran's south coast. But it's been practically shut down, and if that continues, experts are warning it would send energy prices soaring.
But if we get, $10, $20, $30 increase in the price of oil, petrol prices could potentially go up by 30 cents a litre.
But obviously what happens in the coming days and weeks will be critical. The message to Australian drivers today is this: please do not panic.
A rising oil price can also see the cost of other products increase, like polyester, garbage bags and lipstick. Airfares can take a hit as jet fuel costs rise, and home borrowers can be slugged as inflation pushes the RBA into potentially hiking rates further.
So the combination of high inflation but also resilient consumer spending, for example, would add to the case for the RBA raising rates.
Back at the petrol station, it's another one for the worry list.
It just makes me want to work harder now because I got to get more money to pay for things like interest rates.
a further squeeze on already tight household budgets. David Taylor, ABC News.
And there'll be more on the Middle East conflict later this hour on 7:30 when Sarah Ferguson interviews the Prime Minister. To other news now, and an ACT Supreme Court jury has found a man guilty of brutally assaulting and raping a woman he kept confined in his home for 2 days. The victim was rescued by police who found her running along a street in Lynham, naked and screaming in June 2024. Prosecutors had urged the jury to reject Sisi Tutu Mata Fulivai's account that he had acted in self-defence after 2 masked intruders came into his house. Today he was found guilty of all 20 charges, which also included choking the woman and threatening to kill her and her family. Fulivai will be sentenced later in the year. A teenager on trial over a crash in which a 15-year-old boy died has denied being the driver of the car. The crash happened outside the Prime Minister's official residence on Adelaide Avenue in 2024. Today, the now 16-year-old took the stand in the ACT Supreme Court.
He was never behind the wheel. That's the claim of a teenager facing a charge of manslaughter over the fatal crash in 2024. Today, he gave a dramatic account of the aftermath of the crash, insisting he was only a passenger. I was hanging upside down, hanging from the seatbelt. I unplugged it, then fell on my elbows and knees. 2 people have already been sentenced over the crash, including 20-year-old Jack Summerall Jenkins, who admitted to being a passenger. According to the teenager's account, Summerall Jenkins was driving when the car crashed into a barrier and flipped, killing the 15-year-old backseat passenger. The boy says he had to crawl through the driver's door to get out before fleeing in a getaway car. I suggest the accused version he followed Jack is a recent invention. I suggest he's tailored his evidence to fit the narrative he heard in court. The prosecution has relied on DNA evidence from the accused's blood found on the road outside the driver's door. Blood on the road doesn't prove anyone is a driver, it proves he dropped blood on the road. The boy's lawyer, John Pennell, told the jury it's possible Mr Summerall's Jenkins was driving, given he has no memory of the event after consuming drugs and alcohol. But the prosecution urged the jury to consider the forensic evidence. The jury has now retired to consider a verdict. Sakasha Marlin, ABC News, Canberra.
Pauline Hanson gave herself a slap on the wrist and stormed out of the Senate today after she was formally censured for making Islamophobic comments. It's the second time in less than 6 months the One Nation leader has been condemned by parliamentary colleagues in what she's labelling a stunt. Here's National Affairs correspondent Jane Norman.
Resume your seat.
A disorderly Senate.
I just got called a bitch by the racist. You happy? They are? I've given myself a slap. This is a joke.
Grappling with forces tearing at Australia's social fabric.
Senator Pauline Hanson is a racist.
I've asked you to withdraw.
I withdraw.
The commotion caused by a motion censuring Pauline Hanson for inflammatory language, suggesting there are no good Muslims.
Condemning an entire religion is not acceptable.
The motion succeeded with the support of 2 Liberal senators, the rest of the coalition critical of the One Nation leader but refusing to censure her.
My mum's best friend is a Muslim. So I have to say, I think that there are good Muslims in Australia. There was a time when leaders understood some lines should not be crossed. Now we see a different approach, a race to outflank Senator Hanson to the right.
Slamming her second censure in 6 months.
This is a stunt.
The senator stormed out of the chamber.
We came here just looking for a better life.
As One Nation surges in the polls, the coalition's taking a harder line stance on immigration. Today, ramping up its rhetoric against Australia's so-called ISIS brides and their children.
Well, they are ISIS sympathisers, let's be clear.
The families of foreign fighters stuck in a Syrian refugee camp are seeking to return to Australia in what's become a political hot potato. Angus Taylor is trying to reclaim the voters drifting to One Nation while insisting the coalition is not One Nation light. The government is doing its best to draw the comparison, challenging the new Liberal leader to rule out preference deals with the minor party. Jane Norman, ABC News, Canberra.
More than 3 months after a newborn baby was left outside a fire station in Canberra's south, authorities are no closer to tracking down his family. The ACT government has launched a public appeal for information they say will be crucial for the child's future development.
Less than 24 hours old and wrapped in this distinctive blanket, the baby boy was discovered by staff outside the South Tuggeranong fire station in late November.
Without judgment, there's a reason why the little boy was left the way he was, and so we want to respect that but also understand and be able to move forward for this little fella.
The now 3-month-old is healthy and thriving in foster care, but mystery shrouds his background. Today, the ACT government made a direct plea to his mother and biological family.
The baby is safe, but to secure his future, professionals need to understand anything you can share about the information only you and your family can provide.
We're seeking details about any family medical history, cultural or identity connections, and any hopes that his family has for him.
Authorities have stressed the appeal for information isn't about punishment or blame. They say any details, no matter how small, will help them make long-term decisions about the baby's future and care arrangements.
Coming forward does not mean someone must parent him. You can remain anonymous. You do not need to explain everything.
The government hopes there are others in the community who can help.
If you recognise the blanket he was wrapped in or know someone who was pregnant and due around November last year, please contact Crime Stoppers.
To give a baby boy with a troubled start to life a more stable future. Lily Knopfling, ABC News, Canberra.
To finance now, and the local share market fell today in line with tumbling markets around Asia, despite surging oil and gas stocks. Here's Alan Kohler.
Well, it was a day of contrast on the share market. Buy oil and gas stocks and retailers, sell banks and tech stocks. Market overall, down just a bit. Now, the key reason, of course, for the ups and downs is war in the Middle East, which caused the oil price to spike when trading opened and then lose half of what it gained and then tentatively rise again as commodity traders try to figure out whether the oil going through the Straits of Hormuz, that is now not going through said straits because shipping companies can't get insurance, can be replaced from other sources. Now, this 100-year chart of the oil price shows that supply shocks always result in price spikes, including the original revolution in Iran, but the biggest price rises happen because of demand, especially from China, and that's not happening this time. The other thing to mention is that it's not just oil going through those straits in the Persian Gulf. A third of the world's fertiliser and methanol does too, almost 20% of the LNG, an eighth of the world's polypropylene or basic plastic, and also it's not just what goes out that matters. The Gulf states rely on food imports coming in. Now, it's only a small percentage of the global seaborne trade in food, but it's almost all of their supplies, and apparently they're only sitting on 4 weeks of supplies. Gold and silver have also got going, as they always do when the going gets tough, and oil is up 5%. Asian markets are down sharply today, and the Aussie dollar dropped at first and then recovered to end up dead flat. Now, on the subject of house prices in February, which were flat in Melbourne and Sydney, still surging in Perth, Brisbane and Adelaide, the national capital city median rose 9.5% in the past 12 months, more than double wages. So housing affordability reached a new record level of terrible. The ratio of house prices to wages is now 3 times what it was when the Prime Minister was born. And that's finance.
The Matildas say more goals will come as they work their way into the Asian Cup tournament on home soil. The team started its campaign with a scrappy 1-0 win over the Philippines in Perth.
The Matildas arrived in Queensland to prepare for their next game, relieved to have completed their first assignment.
The most important thing is that we got the win and everyone stuck together and it felt like a real together group.
Wheeler's turn.
Australia struck early against the Philippines with Caitlin Ford setting up the captain.
The opening goal of the Women's Asian Cup.
A goal from WA product Sam Kerr was what many in the Perth Stadium crowd of 44,000 had come to see, but other opportunities went begging.
Had to be.
The Matildas thought they'd doubled their lead through Hayley Rasso, but replays showed she was offside.
Has that shoulder breaking the line.
The home team did all the attacking against the world number 41, but had only 6 shots on target against a team it beat 8-0 when they last met.
Fowler has a little bit of space. A yard is often enough.
Can we be better? Yeah, absolutely. But we're getting there.
It's only been 2 days of training with the team, so we just need more time together. It's not the normal lead into a tournament.
On Thursday on the Gold Coast, the Matildas will aim to be more clinical against an Iran team that's trying to focus on football.
I don't want to sort of speak about things that are not in my remit in terms of politics and so on, but I think football is a family. We're supporting the team.
The support for the Matildas will grow if the team can build on its first up win. Duncan Huntsdale, ABC News.
The Australian War Memorial is marking the Navy's 125th anniversary with an updated display of a much-loved exhibit. The bridge of HMAS Brisbane has been brought inside to be part of a new gallery, the Anzac Atrium. It gives visitors a taste of life on board.
Memories came flooding back for Navy veteran Dan Hosick, stepping aboard HMAS Brisbane, no longer at sea, but now at the Australian War Memorial.
It was like a home away from home. Just reflecting on it, there was a lot of collective energy and teamwork. The chart drawers you'd pull out to struggle through and find the next chart that we were going to use in the middle of the night. It's just interesting to just see, all of those things, and it's right here.
Dan served on the ship as a junior officer, and almost 30 years ago, he and his wife Kate got married at Garden Island in Sydney, with HMAS Brisbane providing a fitting backdrop for their wedding photos.
It's just funny to think that something that Dan has and other people have served on is now in Australia's premier war museum. So it's really surreal, actually. I just laugh because it just smells like it did back nearly 30 years ago.
The War Memorial hopes the display will show visitors what it was like to serve on the ship.
What the remarkable curatorial team did was they went and they spoke to as many people as they possibly could to get as many stories as they possibly could.
HMAS Brisbane was the third of Australia's guided missile destroyers, built in the US and used during the Vietnam and Gulf Wars. It's a reminder of naval power at a time when Australia's security environment is increasingly tenuous.
Governments, and not just Australia, but throughout the Indo-Pacific, are investing in larger and more capable maritime forces so that they have the sovereign means to be able to assure their access to the sea, especially for an island trading nation like Australia.
Reflecting on the past and preparing for the future. Ruby Thomas, ABC News, Canberra.
To the weather now and your observations of a storm building over Mawson Pond in the Woden Valley. Thank you to James Montgomery. A broad rain band with isolated thunderstorms delivered some solid rain gauge readings today. Mount Ginini recorded 22 millimetres and 9 millimetres in the valley. Canberra Airport 8 millimetres, with heavy rain continuing tonight across the ACT. And after a low temperature of 17 north side, we reached a top of 21 degrees today. Around the capital region, 24 millimetres was recorded in the rain gauge at Cabramatta, 15 at Thredbo and 13 at Cooma. And tonight there is a severe weather warning for heavy, locally intense rainfall over the ACT and much of the capital region, with Canberra, Goulburn, Wagga Wagga and Albury among locations that could be affected. Across the nation, Sydney reached a top of 28 degrees today and Brisbane 30. And in northern Victoria, heavy rainfall, which caused flash flooding, has moved into the state's northeast. Mildura recorded a new March rainfall record just 2 days into the month. And some Northern Territory residents are preparing for potential flooding after the long-lasting tropical low. The satellite is showing cloud in the centre and southeast in a moisture-laden trough, generating heavy rain and storms in Victoria and western New South Wales, with intense storms over the Northern Territory and western Queensland. And there is also cloud and showers along the eastern seaboard in moist winds, and storm cloud is persisting in the tropics. Tomorrow, only Perth can expect dry and sunny conditions, rain along most of the eastern coastlines and the Red Centre tomorrow. Around the capital, another wet day is on the way. Yass Valley, top of 24. Along the coast, 26 at the Bay and 25 for Merimbula. Inland 25 for Wagga Wagga and 28 for Albury. Canberra can expect another soaking, up to 15 millimetres of rainfall expected. After an overnight low of 17, we can expect a top of 23 degrees. The sun will rise at 6:47 and set at 7:43. Looking ahead on Wednesday, we can expect more showers, a top of 28. Partly cloudy conditions Thursday and Friday with tops of 30 and 31. Saturday is expected to be cloudy with temperatures up to 28 degrees. And that is the latest from the Canberra newsroom. I'm Adrienne Francis. Great to be with you. Stay with us now for 7:30 with Sarah Ferguson. Enjoy your evening and the week. Yarra, good night.